Hello again. Welcome back to Flying Cloud Zen. It's been a while since I've posted one of these. I've given some other public talks that I was hoping to post recordings of to this site in the last several weeks, and that hasn't happened for a variety of different reasons. So I thought I would check in with you all this way and talk about the first part of the daily service. I want to talk about the first three sections of the daily service that we do in Soto Zen, because it describes, I think for everybody, whether we're Zen practitioners or not, it describes what I like to think of as right relationship with the past, the present, and the future. Right relationship with the past, the present, and the future. A lot of faith traditions have liturgical expressions that work with this idea, acknowledgement of those who have come before in our collective history, whether as a faith community, an individual congregation, for example, or as individuals. The state of the world, the state of the heart that we find ourselves in today, what's giving us sustenance, where we're finding our strength and our nurturance in the moment, and then, of course, going forward, the future. What is our aspiration individually and collectively, right? So Zen is certainly not unique in having those movements as part of the service, but I appreciate the wording and the kind of efficient minimalism that Zen is sort of famous for. Boom, boom, boom. The acknowledgement and the description of right relationship with past, present, and future in a Zen service is done in about 2 minutes, maybe 3. And of course, from community to community, from temple to temple, from Zen center to Zen center, this is done in different, sort of different ways, and sometimes with different translations, but the basic movement is the same. So that's what I'd like to introduce you to today, right relationship with past, present, and future. And as we're playing with these ideas, we're using spiritual terms to talk about spiritual movements because that's the point of this channel. That's the point of Flying Cloud Zen. That's the point of spiritual practice. But you'll also notice this has kind of social applications, family applications, personal applications. As a nation, where have we been? Where are we now? Where do we want to go? As a family unit, what created us? Where did we come from? Where are we now? What do our relationships look like now? Where do we want to go? What is our shared vision for the future? As an individual, as a person, where have I come from? Where am I now? Where do I want to go? On a micro level, today, what happened to bring me into waking up this morning? What state did I wake up in this morning as a result of all that's happened to me? Where am I right now in this moment? What is the reality of my felt experience of being alive right now? My feelings, my thoughts, my impulses, right? And then knowing all of that in full awareness, I have agency and choice to help shape the future, right? So I'm just riffing here, but you can kind of see, this has personal applications, organizational applications. It has large scale applications over hundreds of years, thousands of years, maybe millions as a species, the human species, right? But it also has micro expressions, this day, this moment, right? So this is one of those kind of ideas that's a fractal. We can make it as big or as small as we want. We can have it be about faith tradition. We can have it be about practice. We can have it be about all sorts of different things. But it's an interesting way of examining what right relationship looks like, right? So I hope that makes sense as a place to start. So first thing I'll do is a little screen share, which is fun for me. I always like doing this. Let's see if this works for you. All right, there we go. So what you're seeing there are the first 3 movements of the daily service. And again, daily services vary from center to center and how they start and what they include. But a standard template starts in a Zen community. A standard template starts with the acknowledgement of karma, the 3 refuges, and the 4 vows. So making the assumption that these are ideas that are new to you, the acknowledgement of karma the way that it's understood in this particular setting is cause and karma just means cause and effect. And so to start the service with the acknowledgement of karma is a way of saying, here is what brought me to this moment. So this is about right relationship with the past, right? And the verse we all recite is, as you can see there, all of my ancient twisted karma, from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born of body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. Powerful language, right? I mean, that's really powerful language. But in those four little lines, we have the kind of imploring of the heart of the spiritual aspirant to say, I want to see all of what brought me here. And you could hear the word choice, because this is a Buddhist setting, the emphasis on that which creates suffering, greed, hate, and delusion. Why do we focus on that? Because that's what most needs our attention. Obviously, the things that are working don't need our attention. The parts of us that don't hurt are doing okay. But the other parts of us that are constricted with fear, that have been hurt, our wounds, right? Our shame, our unskillful patterns of perception, that's what needs our attention. And so to start by saying all of my karma is ancient and twisted is a way of saying I have a personal karma that I guess I can say is separate, and it's conventionally convenient to describe it that way. That started when I was born, and it's going to continue if I'm lucky for several decades, and then at some point exhaust itself, and then I am done as an individual entity. Sure. Again, that's conventional perception, and it's useful. It's true. It has a truth to it. What is also true, and what is strongly implied by the language ancient and twisted, is the actual nature of cause and effect is way more complicated than a human being could ever possibly understand. We could never understand or untie all of the different knots and all the different strings that are all woven together into the tapestry that we call this self in this moment. It's completely inseparable from the rest of creation. And so describing it as ancient reminds us my karma started way before me, and therefore way before my parents, my parents' parents, my parents' parents' parents, and you sort of get it. Even though I'm the one who does the avowing in that last line, my sense, because of the implications of the first line, is that I'm speaking on behalf of everybody everywhere, because my karma includes everybody everywhere. It is ancient, and it is twisted. So it is twisted around you, and yours is twisted around mine, and both of our karmas started way before us, right? This table was set long before we were born, and now we have to eat it. We have to eat everything that has been given us, whether we like it or not. This is part of the deal. So I make the decision in that last line. I will avow it. I will bring myself into clear seeing. I will be willing to see it. We call that wisdom, and I'm going to do that with a heart of compassion, because then I have wisdom and compassion both working for me. I'm bringing in compassion there, because even though a vow implies to see clearly and to own all, that feels very logical and very thoroughgoing. Over on this side, we can sort of see, but we just mentioned greed, hate, and delusion. What we're talking about here is suffering. The suffering that I was born into and that I have caused, helped to cause, been part of systems that caused, as have you, as have my parents, as have systems that they created, as have. So again, the language here is trying to be as inclusive as possible of all of the expressions of both individual and collective suffering that humans are heir to. The acknowledgement of karma. It's sometimes called, this same verse is sometimes called the formless repentance. Formless, again, meaning I'm not getting into the specifics, the specific form it took that day, or in that moment, or in that life, but formless. These are the large movements. These are the large movements that include all human beings, right? Yeah. So that's a way of starting our service. We start by saying, oh, wow, What brought me here today is a giant mix of things. And even though in this particular case we name greed, hate, and delusion because it's Buddhist and we concentrate on suffering, please remember that it also includes all sorts of other things. Not just suffering brought you to this moment, lots of other things too. If you're a spiritual aspirant and you find yourself in a meditation hall and you're wanting to participate in meditation and you're wanting to participate in a liturgy and you're wanting to learn what we call Dharma, there's also longing in you that's motivating you, as well as suffering pushing you from the back. There must be something pulling you from the front too. And your karma, cause and effect, is more than just the bad stuff. In fact, when we look really, really carefully, bad and good start getting awfully gauzy, right? They're not quite as clearly defined as we imagine them. That was a bad day, that was a good day. Hard to say, actually, when we pull back a ways or when we follow the storyline further, because what we call bad in the moment can be a catalyst for growth and insight and bravery, compassion. And what we call good in the moment might evolve into going to sleep, part of our heart dying because we kind of got lazy, or who knows, right? All right, so it's a beautiful place to start. It's a beautiful place to start a service. This is what brings me here. Lots of suffering, lots of longing, and a lot of collective energy, right? I'm included in that collective energy, but my karma, I'm avowing it, and my aspiration is to avow all of that. Wow, what a place to start. It's an interesting start to a liturgy, isn't it? And so then we have our second movement. I'll do my cool little screen share here again. Whoops, there we go. Now we move on to the present. What's right relationship with the present look like? Right relationship with the past we've just described as avowing all of it. I'll see as much of it as I can in my body, in my thoughts, in my heart. Okay. But now in the present, we have the three refuges. This is what that's going to look like today for me. Now, this is a pretty Buddhist expression, but with a little careful translation, you can imagine how it can affect you or include you, whether you consider yourself a Buddhist or not. The three refuges go like this. I take refuge in Buddha, and then the intention that's married to that is, may all living beings embody this great way, resolving to wake up. This translation says awaken. May all living beings embody the great way, resolving to awaken. It goes on, I take refuge in Dharma, that's the teaching. May all living beings deeply enter the teachings. Wisdom like the sea. And then it goes on, I take refuge in Sangha, that's the community. May all living beings support harmony in the community, completely without hindrance. So it doesn't take much to translate. Buddha is just the teacher, the Dharma is just the teaching, and Sangha is just the community. So that could be Christ and the gospel and the church. That's Buddha, Dharma, Sangha here. It could be the prophet, the Quran, and the community of people who come together in the mosque. This could have secular humanist applications, agnostic applications. It doesn't really matter. Again, how we self-define. What we're talking about there is, I want to have a relationship with what is real. And so in the present moment, I'm taking action to that end. I have a relationship with wise ones. I have a relationship with the teaching of wise ones. And I have a relationship with other people who are doing wisdom practice, compassion practice. We call it spiritual practice. You can kind of say, oh yeah, all right, that does include me. Actually, that does include me. My decision to read my Rumi devotional this morning, to read my daily meditations with Rumi, and then to mention it to my friend when we're walking around the lake and go, God, I was really moved when he said the door is round and open, don't go back to sleep. I feel like that's calling me to something. What does that mean to you? How does that show up for you? And you're talking about it. Suddenly you have a teacher who wrote something, you have teachings that you're working with, and you're having a conversation with another human being about how it might land in them. Do you see it? Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is right there. But this is the choice to practice. That's what this is. right? In Buddhism, we say we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Cool. Regardless of how that shows up in your heart and in your tradition, you can feel it though, right? That's active choice made in the moment. I'm going to pursue this part of my life because it's really, really, really important to me. It's actually central to who I am. My spiritual life actually is my life. My ego life is that which I can observe. Ooh, there's all sorts of tangled stuff over here. Karma. Oh, wow. Ugh. Look at the parts of me that get greedy and get angry and get activated and start to hurt. There's another part of my life that can relate to those. Oh, and can hold the parts of me that are hurting with what we call empathy or compassion, and can bring some light or some clarity or some understanding to the parts of me that are confused. Oh, we call that wisdom. Wow. Right? The functioning of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is, when we use those words, it sounds really Buddhist, but you can sort of see this isn't unique to our tradition. This is just the deal. But it is about the present moment right relationship. The taking refuge in the moment is about acknowledging my spiritual life is the center of my life. It actually is my life. And so I'm actively making a decision to be in relationship with teacher, teachings, and community, however that looks. Can you kind of feel it? Wow. That's my commitment in the moment. That really helps me clarify. It really helps me clarify the center point of my life. I can understand all the karma that brought me here in that first movement. But here's where it's like, oh, now I have agency and choice. What will I choose to do? I want to be in relationship with that which nourishes the deepest parts of me. All right, pretty beautiful. And then, arguably the most beautiful, for a lot of folks anyway, myself included, is our relationship with the future. Right relationship with the future. In this service that we're using today as our template, that's expressed by the 4 vows. The 4 vows in Mahayana Buddhism are sometimes also called the Bodhisattva vows. But they are the vow of the vow of the spiritual aspirant, the deepest part of the spiritual aspirant that realizes that their lives and their heart and their practice path is not separate from anybody else's and is done on behalf of everybody everywhere. We see expressions of this again in all faith traditions, usually in the writings of the mystics. That's usually where we see this. Sometimes it sneaks its way into canon, which is awesome, right? Canonical scripture too. But oftentimes this largest possible heart is usually something that the mystics go so far out of the way to express. So in Buddhism, and in our translation here, we can read this together. It goes, the 4 go like this. Beings are numberless, vowing to free them. The second one is delusions are inexhaustible, vowing to extinguish them. The third one is dharma gates are boundless, vowing to enter them. And then the 4th and final vow is Buddha's way is unsurpassable, vowing to become it. You'll notice there's not an I in that part. That was a conscious choice made by the people who translated this version. There are lots of versions of the Bodhisattva vows, lots of translations, and many of them do start with I. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. This particular translation omitted the word I and just put in the verb. Beings are numberless, vowing to, describing the action. So we're taking this vow, we're doing the action of the vowing in the present moment, but it pertains to where we want to go in the future. And it's expressing what we hope is the rightest of possible relationships with that future. This is the direction we want to go. Karma is what got us here. The refuges describe our decision to do something. And this last movement is about, and this is the direction in which we want to go. And you'll notice with these 4, when you spend some time with them, they're also formless in that they aren't, like if we were sailing at night on the ocean, this would be like a star we're going to guide by. It's not going to be the port we're going to arrive at. Do you sort of see the difference there? I promise to meet you tomorrow morning at 8 for coffee. That's a promise, and I can be in a specific place at a specific time and even get a specific beverage. Cool. It's a doable thing. It's tangible, it's finite, it's concrete, and I call it a promise. Here, we're describing this as a vow. And a vow is probably not something we're going to arrive at in a specific sense. It is more like the star that we're going to steer by. We're going to head in this direction because that's the direction the star is leading us. So in that sense, we never arrive. And in another sense, we always arrive because we're always steering by that star. I don't expect to arrive at the star if I'm in a boat on the ocean, right? So that's not a sense of failure. It's a sense of this is the thing that is guiding me. This is the direction in which I am going. Therefore, I'm outside of the realm of success and failure, right? A port, a specific promise, I can succeed or fail at. A vow, it's much less tangible in that sense. It's formless, kind of like that first movement, the acknowledgement of karma being formless. So here again, we're describing in those 4 vows, the realization, that first one describes the realization, I'm not alone, there are an infinite number of beings. Beings are without number. This is humans, of course, but this verse is from Mahayana Buddhism, which also means, when we say being, we mean, if you can think of it or have a word for it, it's a being. It's more than just human. It's natural systems, it's animals, it's plankton, it's plants, it's air, it's clouds, it's movements, it's emotions, it's thoughts. Thought is a being, right? Wow. Beings are without number. And I practice on behalf of all of them. Vowing to free them is the verse. And there's a million different ways of talking about that, and that's a different talk for another day. But you can feel the heart that gives rise to words like this. I'm working on behalf of all of us. I realize we're all interconnectedness, and personal freedom without collective freedom is not a possible thing. So that's my aspiration. That's the direction I want my ship to go. The second one talks about admitting how close we are to delusion, how easily we are fooled, how often we get it wrong, how sinful is our nature. If we want to mix in a little Christian language, delusions are inexhaustible. My capability of getting this wrong seems to be absolutely inexhaustible. And yet, I vow. Can you feel the courage behind that? The third movement, Dharma gates are boundless. That's a fancy Buddhist way of saying the things that I have to learn are infinite too. Dharma gate is a teaching, a door through which you walk, a teaching, an idea of like, oh, I could learn something from that. And because this is Buddhism, every moment is that. You can learn something from this moment. You can learn something from this moment. And you have an infinite number of moments, right? Or one moment that's infinite, if you prefer. Therefore, the possibility of learning and expanding and including and getting larger, wow, infinite. And I vow to do all of it, all of it, all of it, which leads me to finally, Buddhism is unsurpassable. This isn't my favorite translation. I kind of prefer the way is unattainable, or spiritual growth doesn't have a boundary. You never can arrive. Unsurpassable is kind of nice, like it doesn't have a limit, right? But, anyway, you understand. Spiritual path is infinite. You don't arrive at it. It's without any kind of boundary. And our response to that is, I'll become that. I will not only attain it or learn it or master it, but I'm going to actually become it. I am it already. I am it already. So those are very brave sentences. The 4 Bodhisattva vows are famously expansive. They're famously inspirational. They're very, very moving. They really appeal to this part of us. They thwart this part. This part doesn't know what to do. The head, the brain doesn't really know what to do with the scope of those. But the heart understands them, I think, intuitively, because they use the language of love. They use the language of the soul. So there we have the beginning of the service. And in real time, this is chanted in about 2 or 3 minutes, right? Together as a group, we all just boom, 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 boom. And so we're done. And then we move on and we do the Heart Sutra, we do a bunch of other stuff. But isn't it interesting that when we do a liturgy in the Zen tradition, those first 2 or 3 minutes are basically said collectively as a way of saying, here's what got us here, This is all the boat we're in. Here's what we're going to do. We're all choosing to do something today. We're collectively in that. And here's the direction we want that to go. And we're also collectively in that. So even though the shape it's going to take for me and the shape it's going to take for the person breathing next to me are going to be really different, the acknowledgement of the past and that relationship, the acknowledgement of the present and that relationship, and our aspiration for the future and that relationship is shared. We do have a shared relationship, and we long for it to be right. So I encourage you to just sort of roll these ideas around in your head. See how they line up for you. See how the tradition you were raised in expresses these things. See how your right relationship with past, present, and future informs your experience of the present moment. I promise you that it does. In large ways, the decision you're going to make about whether or not to start your own business or ask that person to marry you or have kids or go visit your parents. And in small ways, how you're cutting those carrots when you're making the soup for tonight. It informs everything. How we relate to the past and the present and the future informs everything. So I hope some of these ideas have something to offer you. Right? I hope these little ideas that come to us through this Zen tradition give us some doors to open, some possibilities of looking at our life that are of value. I hope they've helped you. As always, let me know what you think. It's lovely to see things in the comment section. It's always wonderful to receive your emails. Questions, comments are always wonderful. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your practice, and we'll see you back again here very soon. All right. Thank you so much.